Sit back, relax, and welcome to Reading Hours. Today's book is The Trial by Franz Kafka. Please let us know in the comments from where you are watching, or if there is a book you want us to summarize in future. Franz Kafka's The Trial is one of the most haunting and enigmatic works of 20th century literature. Left unfinished at the time of Kafka's death in 1924, and published posthumously in 1925 by his friend and literary executor Max Brod. The novel captures the anxiety and helplessness of an individual caught in a nightmarish bureaucratic system. The book follows Josef K, a bank official who is arrested one morning for an unspecified crime and is forced to navigate a surreal and oppressive legal process that offers no clear answers. Like much of Kafka's work, The Trial explores themes of power, alienation, and the absurdity of authority. The novel's publication has been surrounded by controversy. Kafka had explicitly instructed Brod to burn his unpublished manuscripts upon his death, but Brod defied his wishes, believing Kafka's work to be of immense literary significance. As a result, The Trial exists in an unfinished state, with missing or possibly misplaced chapters. Despite this, its fragmentary nature adds to the book's sense of disorientation and unresolved tension, making it one of the most compelling depictions of existential dread in literature. With this understanding, let us begin the story of Josef K, an ordinary man trapped in an incomprehensible legal system that slowly consumes him. On the morning of his 30th birthday, Josef K wakes up to find his ordinary life interrupted in the most unexpected way. As he sits up in his bed, ready to start his day as a respectable and diligent chief clerk at a reputable bank, he notices something unusual. The landlady's cook, who usually brings him his breakfast, has not arrived. Instead, there is an unfamiliar man standing in his room. The man wears a black suit, and while he is not particularly threatening in appearance, there is something unnerving about his presence. Before K can demand an explanation, another man enters the room. Both of them inform him with an air of casual authority that he is under arrest. At first, K assumes this must be some sort of prank or misunderstanding. He asks for identification, for some official document explaining the reason for his arrest, but none is provided. The two men, who introduce themselves as Franz and Willem, are not uniformed officers, nor do they provide any specific charges against him. They do not detain him in a prison cell, nor do they prevent him from going about his day. Instead, they simply inform him that legal proceedings have begun against him, and that he will have to defend himself. The absurdity of the situation is immediately clear to K, but there is no one to whom he can appeal. When he protests, they dismiss his questions with an air of bureaucratic detachment, as though everything is proceeding according to an impenetrable set of rules. Despite his insistence that he has done nothing wrong, K soon realizes that resistance is futile. Even Frau Grubach, his landlady, seems strangely deferential to the process, as though she has accepted this inexplicable event without question. When K seeks reassurance from Fräulein Buissner, a young typist who also lodges in the building, he finds himself engaging in a long and rambling monologue about the absurdity of his situation. His frustration builds as he tries to impose order onto a world that no longer conforms to logic. Later that night, in an impulsive act of misplaced assertiveness, he kisses Fräulein Buissner, an act reaction that leaves her unsettled and further emphasizes how much his life has already begun to unravel. Days later, K receives notification that his first court appearance has been scheduled. However, he is given no details about the charges against him or what he should prepare for. When he arrives at the designated address, he finds himself in a claustrophobic, crowded attic space filled with unfamiliar people. The court is nothing like what he expected. It is neither an official government institution nor a properly organized judicial system. The air is thick and oppressive. The walls lined with shelves stacked haphazardly with dusty books and files. The assembled crowd, composed of clerks, officials, and onlookers, regards him with curiosity, but offers no guidance. At the center of the room, the examining magistrate presides over the hearing, yet his demeanor is informal and dismissive. When K attempts to speak in his own defense, he quickly realizes that his words carry no weight. The magistrate allows him to talk, but responds only with cryptic remarks, never addressing the substance of K's arguments. The spectators, at first attentive, soon begin whispering and laughing, as though the entire proceeding is some kind of performance. Every time K tries to assert logic or demand fairness, he is met with evasions and ridicule. His frustration mounts, but it is clear that arguing with the court is futile. The session ends without any resolution. There is no verdict, no sentencing, no clear next steps. K is simply expected to continue navigating the process, though no one will tell him what the process entails. As he leaves, he is struck by the realization that he is no longer in control of his own life. Though he has not been imprisoned, he is far from free. He has entered a labyrinth of bureaucracy where reason holds no power, and he can neither escape nor understand the forces at play. The trial has begun, and there is no turning back. In the days following his first court appearance, Josef K struggles to regain a sense of normalcy. He returns to his job at the bank, trying to focus on his work, but the trial lingers in his mind like a slow, spreading sickness. Though no immediate action is taken against him, he is aware that his case continues in the shadows, advancing through channels he cannot see or understand. There is no clear authority to whom he can appeal, no structured process to follow. He is trapped in a system that refuses to explain itself, and the weight of uncertainty begins to gnaw at his thoughts. At first, K tries to ignore it. He convinces himself that the entire matter is absurd, an error that will be corrected in time. He avoids discussing it with his colleagues, though he senses their growing curiosity. A few, like his deputy manager, seem unusually interested in his affairs, watching him with a kind of restrained eagerness, as if waiting for him to slip. K tells himself that as long as he continues working diligently, nothing will come of the trial. But his resolve weakens when he begins receiving more summonses, vague messages delivered through obscure channels, written in cryptic, almost nonsensical language. Despite his initial defiance, K soon feels compelled to engage with the court again. A strange pull draws him back to the labyrinthine corridors of the judicial system, as if his own fate is dragging him forward against his will. One day, while wandering the city, he stumbles upon a dingy, run-down building that seems oddly familiar. After a moment of hesitation, he realizes it is the same courthouse where his first hearing took place. He had not sought it out deliberately, yet here he stands, staring at its grimy exterior, the weight of unseen forces pressing against him. Inside, he encounters a peculiar figure, the court usher's wife, a seductive and enigmatic woman who seems to know more about the court's workings than she should. She speaks in a hushed, knowing tone, hinting at the layers of corruption within the system. She is both a willing informant and a prisoner of the court herself, bound to it by invisible chains. She flirts with K, suggesting that she might be able to help him, though her true intentions remain ambiguous. As he follows her through the musty, dimly lit rooms of the court, he meets a law student named Berthold, a crude and ambitious young man who boasts of his connections to the magistrates. Berthold treats K with condescension, speaking as though K's fate is already sealed, and that his own knowledge of the court's workings grants him an air of superiority. The usher's wife, caught between her desire to assist K and her entanglement with the corrupt underbelly of the court, plays a dangerous game, one in which K quickly realizes he is a mere pawn. Berthold sneers as he explains how the judicial system operates, though his words are filled more with arrogance than clarity. He alludes to the existence of higher authorities, judges and officials who work in secrecy, controlling cases from the shadows. He speaks of endless appeals, of accused men wasting their lives attempting to climb a bureaucratic ladder that leads nowhere. The process, he suggests, is not about justice but endurance. The only ones who thrive are those who learn to manipulate it, to maneuver through its tangled pathways with cunning and deceit. K listens, his frustration mounting. He has not been told why he was arrested, nor has he been given any opportunity to mount a meaningful defense. Now, it seems, even those within the system see it not as a means of determining guilt or innocence, but as an endless trap. There is no final judgment, only perpetual entanglement. He realizes that if he does not fight back, he will be swallowed whole by the court's machinery. Disgusted by Berthold's smugness, K turns away from him, his mind racing. He must regain control. There must be a way to break free. The usher's wife gives him a lingering look as he leaves, as if she, too, knows that his struggle is futile. Back at work, K attempts to suppress his growing anxiety, but the trial's influence seeps into every aspect of his life. His colleagues notice his distraction, and though he tells no one of his predicament, there is an unspoken tension in the air. His superiors at the bank are watching him closely. His workload has subtly shifted, fewer responsibilities, fewer important meetings. The court may not have imprisoned him in a cell, but it has placed him under an invisible scrutiny that follows him everywhere. K finds himself growing paranoid. Every interaction feels weighted with hidden meaning. When he speaks to a client, he wonders if they have heard about his case. When he walks through the office halls, he feels eyes on his back. The bank's deputy manager, a man K has long considered a rival, seems particularly invested in his affairs. He asks casual but pointed questions, his tone laced with a barely concealed satisfaction. It is as if he is waiting for K to fall. One evening, as K walks home through the dimly lit streets of the city, he contemplates his next move. Should he continue to fight the case, seeking out legal assistance? Or should he ignore it altogether and hope it fades away? But the court is not something that can be ignored. It is an ever-present shadow, waiting in the background, ready to pounce at any moment. As he turns a corner, he notices two men standing beneath a street lamp. They are dressed in black, their faces partially obscured by the flickering light. For a moment, K hesitates. He does not recognize them, but there is something familiar about their presence, a quiet, oppressive stillness that reminds him of the morning of his arrest. He walks past them quickly, resisting the urge to look back. He tells himself he is imagining things, but as he reaches his apartment, he cannot shake the feeling that the trial has already altered his life beyond repair. It has seeped into every crack, every shadow. He is no longer just a defendant in a case he does not understand. He is a man at war with an unseen, unknowable force. That night, he lies awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the city. He knows that this is only the beginning. The trial has its grip on him, and it will not let go. In the days that follow, Josef K finds himself growing increasingly restless. His life is no longer his own. His every thought is shadowed by the trial. He tries to keep up appearances at the bank, performing his duties with his usual efficiency, but the burden of uncertainty weighs heavily on him. Each morning, he wakes with the vague expectation that something decisive will happen, that the court will summon him, that a final judgment will be delivered. Yet nothing comes. The process continues in secret, advancing beyond his reach, slipping through his fingers whenever he tries to grasp it. One evening, after another long and fruitless day at work, K receives an unexpected visitor, his Uncle Carl. A brusque and authoritative man, Carl has long been one of K's few family connections. His presence now is unsettling. As soon as he enters K's apartment, he wastes no time in addressing the matter directly. He has heard rumors of the trial. K stiffens, caught off guard. He has not spoken of his predicament to anyone outside of his immediate circle. Yet word has somehow reached his uncle. Carl's face is lined with worry, but there is also frustration in his eyes. He does not understand how K could allow such a thing to happen. To be accused of a crime, any crime, is not just a personal misfortune, but a stain upon the family name. Desperate to contain the situation, Carl insists that K seek proper legal representation. He has already arranged a meeting with a well-connected lawyer, a man named Huld. Though K is reluctant, he finds himself agreeing. He knows he cannot fight this battle alone. They leave at once, traveling through the dark streets until they arrive at Huld's residence, a gloomy, oppressive house where the lawyer lies bedridden, wrapped in thick blankets. Huld is an old man, frail and wheezing, yet his eyes gleam with the sharpness of someone who understands the inner workings of power. He receives them in a dimly lit room, where stacks of legal documents are piled haphazardly, gathering dust. K watches as his uncle and Huld converse in hushed tones, discussing his case as though he were not even present. He grows irritated. He does not like the idea of handing over control to a man who can barely rise from his bed. When he finally speaks, pressing Huld for concrete information, the lawyer responds with vague assurances. The case, he explains, is not one that can be won through traditional means. There are no clear rules, no predictable outcomes. Success, or at least survival, depends on influence, on working the system from within. Huld mentions that he has a close connection to the court, a man known only as the clerk of the court. This man, he claims, has the ear of powerful figures within the judicial system. He might be able to intervene on K's behalf, subtly shifting the tide of the trial in his favor. But nothing is guaranteed. The process is opaque, its true workings hidden even from those who serve within it. As Huld speaks, K feels his frustration mounting. Everything about the trial is designed to keep him off balance, to rob him of agency. He wants answers, yet all he receives are riddles. the lawyer's vague reassurances do not comfort him. If anything, they deepen his unease. Before they leave, Huld's nurse enters the room, a striking woman named Lenny. Unlike Huld, she exudes confidence and vitality. She takes an immediate interest in K, watching him with an intensity that makes him uncomfortable. As his uncle and the lawyer continue their discussion, Lenny pulls K aside, speaking to him in a low, conspiratorial tone. She tells him that most of the accused men who come to Huld never escape their trials. They linger in the system, trapped in an endless loop of proceedings and appeals, slowly wasting away. But she adds, some men learn to adapt. They accept the nature of the process and find ways to navigate it. Her meaning is unclear, but her tone is suggestive. She presses a hand against K.'s arm, her fingers lingering. He is not sure whether she is offering advice, seduction, or something more dangerous. The way she looks at him suggests that she has seen many men like him before, confused, desperate, searching for an escape where none exists. Before K can respond, his uncle calls for him. The meeting is over. They leave Huld's house, stepping once more into the cold night air. As they walk, Carl expresses his disappointment. He had hoped the lawyer would provide reassurance, but instead, everything seems more uncertain than ever. He warns K not to take the matter lightly. The trial is not something that can simply be ignored. But K is tired of being told what he must do. He is tired of people speaking in riddles, of the endless waiting, of the suffocating weight of uncertainty. As his uncle leaves him at his apartment, K stands for a long moment in the darkness, feeling the walls of his world closing in. He knows now that the trial is not just an event in his life. It is his life, and there is no escape. The days blur together, each one suffused with a growing sense of unease. Josef K continues to perform his duties at the bank, but the trial gnaws at the edges of his mind, an ever-present weight that makes every interaction feel hollow. Though he still maintains the outward appearance of control, his inner world is unraveling. The court's influence is insidious. It does not imprison him in the conventional sense, yet it infects his life completely. One afternoon, as he sits at his desk reviewing documents, he is interrupted by a knock at his office door. A junior clerk informs him that someone is waiting in one of the bank's storerooms, a man from the court. The message is cryptic, but K understands that he has little choice in the matter. The trial has already demonstrated its ability to intrude into every aspect of his life. He makes his way down to the dimly lit storeroom, a cramped space filled with ledgers and files that seem long forgotten. There, he finds two familiar figures, Franz and Willem, the same court officials who had first arrested him. But something is different this time. The men are not standing in authority. Instead, they are kneeling, their heads bowed. Behind them, a third man looms, holding a whip. At first, K is unable to comprehend the scene. The two men look up at him with pleading expressions, their faces drenched in sweat. The whip-bearing man, dressed in a dark leather uniform, explains in a cold, detached manner that Franz and Willem are to be punished. Their crime: accepting bribes during their dealings with K. K is stunned. He had not reported them for any wrongdoing. If anything, their conduct had been inexplicable, but not cruel. He attempts to protest, to argue that this punishment is unnecessary. But the man with the whip remains indifferent. The trial, he explains, operates by its own logic. There is no appeal, no opportunity for explanation. The sentence has already been passed, and it must be carried out. K hesitates, uncertain of what to do. He feels no particular affection for Franz and Willem after all. They were the ones who had initiated this nightmare. But watching them cower before their executioner fills him with an unexpected sense of guilt. He has never had control over the trial, yet somehow it seems that his mere existence within the process has doomed others. In an impulsive attempt to assert his authority, K tries to bribe the whip-bearer, offering him money in exchange for sparing the two men. But the man refuses, shaking his head as if K has misunderstood the very nature of the situation. The punishment is not transactional. It is simply the inevitable course of justice. As K stands frozen, the whip comes down. A sharp crack echoes through the storeroom as Franz cries out in pain. K recoils, horrified. Another lash follows, and then another. The two men writhe under the blows, their agony unfolding before him in an endless loop. Overwhelmed, K stumbles out of the storeroom, closing the door behind him. But as he ascends the stairs back to his office, a terrible thought takes root in his mind. Will this scene repeat every time he returns? Will Franz and Willem be trapped in this punishment indefinitely, suffering over and over, a consequence of a system that does not allow for resolution? For the rest of the day, K tries to convince himself that what he saw was merely an aberration, a particularly grotesque display of the court's power. But deep down, he knows better. The trial is not just something that happens in courtrooms or through official summons. It is everywhere, creeping into spaces both public and private, turning every interaction into a reminder of his helplessness. In the following days, his fear hardens into resentment. He refuses to let the court dictate the terms of his life any longer. If they will not tell him what crime he is accused of, if they insist on dragging him through this absurd process, then he will fight them in his own way. Determined to take back control, K visits the office of his lawyer, Huld. But when he arrives, he finds himself not in a place of legal strategy, but once again in the midst of a bizarre and unsettling scene. Lenny, the lawyer's nurse, is waiting for him. The moment he steps through the door, she takes his hand, drawing him into an embrace that is both intimate and unsettling. She speaks to him in a whisper, as if they are sharing a secret, except K is not sure what the secret is. She tells him that he should not rely too much on Huld. The lawyer may claim to have influence, but the court does not function in ways that ordinary men can understand. K pulls away, confused. Lenny laughs softly, as if his confusion only makes him more interesting. She leads him into another room where a frail, sickly man sits, Block, a merchant who is also one of Huld's clients. Unlike K, Block has been ensnared in the trial for years. His case has dragged on endlessly, and in that time, he has been reduced to something less than a man. He lives for the trial, obsessing over every minute detail, clinging to the hope that his lawyer might one day deliver him from this nightmare. Block's deference to Huld is pathetic. He bows before him, hangs onto his every word, desperate for even the smallest sign of progress. And yet, despite his devotion, he has gained nothing. His case lingers, just as KS does, moving forward in invisible ways that cannot be measured or understood. Watching Block fills K with dread. Is this what he will become? A man so consumed by the trial that his entire existence is reduced to waiting. The thought disgusts him. He refuses to let that happen. With newfound resolve, K decides he must rid himself of Huld. The lawyer, for all his supposed connections, has done nothing to help him. If anything, he has only deepened the confusion. K sees now that relying on others is pointless. The court operates in ways beyond reason, beyond human intervention. But even as he makes this decision, a terrible certainty settles within him. The trial is not something he can fight. It is not an enemy that can be defeated, nor a puzzle that can be solved. It is simply there, a force beyond understanding, and it will never let him go. Josef K wakes up one morning with a renewed sense of determination, but it is undercut by an undeniable weariness. The trial has invaded every aspect of his life, an ever-tightening noose that he cannot escape. His frustration has hardened into defiance, but even that defiance is starting to feel like an act of self-deception. The court, for all its faceless absurdity, is more powerful than he had ever imagined. Determined to regain some control, K decides to dismiss his lawyer, Huld. His visit to the lawyer's home, where he encountered Block, had been the final confirmation that Huld was useless. The lawyer had offered him no clarity, no strategy, only cryptic reassurances and vague warnings about the court's complexity. Block's pathetic servitude had disgusted K, but even more than that, it had terrified him. He could not let himself become another Block, an empty man who spent his days bowing and scraping before a system that would never grant him justice. K marches into Huld's house unannounced. The lawyer, still in his sick, seems unsurprised to see him. Lenny is there too, watching K, with her usual mixture of amusement and something else, something unreadable. Block is also present, hunched over like a nervous dog, hanging onto every word exchanged between Huld and KK, does not bother with pleasantries. He announces his decision clearly. He no longer requires Huld's services. He will handle his case on his own. Huld barely reacts. He merely nods, as though he had expected this all along. "It is, of course, your choice," he says, his voice slow and measured. But there is something in his expression that unsettles K, not quite a smirk, but something close. Lenny tilts her head, smiling at K in a way that feels condescending. "You think you can do better?" she asks. K ignores her. He has made his decision and he will not be talked out of it. Block, however, looks horrified. His eyes dart between K and Huld, as if trying to understand how anyone could willingly cast themselves adrift from the only guidance available. "Foolish," Block mutters under his breath. K turns on him sharply. "What did you say?" Block hesitates, but Huld gestures for him to speak. Emboldened, Block straightens up and dares to address K directly. "You don't understand the court. None of us do. But at least with a lawyer, you have a connection to it. However weak, however small, it is better than being alone." K sneers. "And what has that connection done for you?" Block falters. His lips twitch as if searching for a reply, but there is none. The truth is too obvious. His trial, like K's, has gone nowhere. Still, K cannot shake the feeling that he has done something dangerous by severing his ties with Huld. It is not just the lawyer that he has dismissed. It is the illusion of progress, the belief that someone, somewhere, might be able to help him. Yet there is no time for regrets. The trial will not wait. As K leaves Huld's house, he is struck by a realization. For all the time that has passed, he is no closer to understanding what he has been accused of. The charge against him remains as obscure as ever. He knows only that the court demands his submission, and that the more he resists, the deeper it drags him in. With no lawyer to rely on, he decides to take matters into his own hands. He will seek out help elsewhere, even if he must go directly to those within the court itself. One name comes to mind, the painter Titorelli. K had learned of Titorelli through a passing remark, an artist who, for reasons unknown, has ties to the court. Perhaps he can provide some insight, some leverage that K has been missing. Titorelli's studio is located in a decrepit building in a poor part of town. As K enters, he is immediately struck by the suffocating heat. The air is thick and stale, as if the room has been sealed for years. The walls are lined with paintings, all of them nearly identical, dark, ominous landscapes that seem to stretch into infinity. The painter himself is a thin, nervous man, his clothes stained with paint, his fingers twitching as he gestures for K to sit. He speaks quickly, his words tumbling out in an anxious rhythm, as if he is constantly afraid of being overheard. K wastes no time. "I need to understand the court," he says. "You have connections. What can you tell me?" Titorelli laughs, a dry, humorless sound. "You think there is something to understand?" K frowns. "There must be. It's a system, isn't it?" "Systems have rules." The painter shakes his head. "The court is not a system. It is a presence. It exists, and that is all." K clenches his jaw. He has heard variations of this same answer too many times before. "Then why are you involved with it?" Titorelli shrugs. "I paint for them, that is all. They like my work, and so they protect me somewhat. But do not mistake that for power. Even the judges, even the officials, they are all trapped within it too." K leans forward. "Then how do I win?" The painter smiles at him, but it is a tired, pitying smile. "There are 3 kinds of acquittal," he explains. "First, true acquittal, but that is only a legend. No one ever truly escapes the court. Second, apparent acquittal, where your case is temporarily dismissed, but it will always return. You will never be free. Third, protraction, where you simply keep the case in limbo forever, never resolved, never concluded. But that requires influence, connections. You must keep the case alive, keep it from reaching judgment, and hope that by the time it does, you are too old for them to care." K listens in silence. "None of these options sound like freedom. Which one should I choose?" he asks finally. Titorelli spreads his hands. "That is not up to you." K leaves the studio feeling colder than when he arrived. There is no way out, not a real one. At best, he can delay the inevitable, but the trial will never end, not until it consumes him completely. As he steps back into the street, he feels something shift within him. For the first time, the anger, the resistance, the belief that he might be able to fight this, it begins to fade. In its place is something far worse. A quiet, creeping despair, Josef K walks away from Titorelli's suffocating studio, his mind tangled in the painter's ominous words. The court is not a system, but a presence. There is no real acquittal. The only options are delays, illusions, or submission. The weight of these realizations presses down on K, and for the first time, he truly begins to feel powerless. As he returns to his daily routine at the bank, he notices that everything feels different. The same office, the same colleagues, the same transactions, but he is no longer fully present. The court's influence has seeped into every corner of his life. He finds it difficult to concentrate, and even the most straightforward tasks feel meaningless against the backdrop of his trial. The other bank employees seem to sense the change in him. His subordinates tread carefully around him, while his superiors observe him with quiet suspicion. He wonders if they already know about his case, if his arrest is some unspoken secret being passed around behind his back. One afternoon, his uncle Karl arrives unexpectedly at the bank. A distant relative, but one of the few people K considers family. Karl is a man of business, practical, impatient, and quick to anger. He has heard of K's trial, though K does not know how, and he is furious. "You're handling this all wrong," Karl snaps the moment they are alone. "You can't just drift through this. You need someone who actually understands the law, someone with real influence. I'm taking you to see a proper advocate." K barely has time to protest before Karl drags him into a carriage, and they set off through the city streets. He tries to argue that he has already dismissed his lawyer, that he does not need another one, but Karl ignores him. "This is different," Karl insists. "This man is powerful. He knows the inner workings of the court. If anyone can help you, it's him." The carriage soon pulls up outside an imposing building, half decayed yet grand in a way that suggests it once belonged to a more dignified era. Inside, the air is thick with dust and the scent of old books. A slow-moving servant leads them through dimly lit hallways to the office of the advocate, an elderly man named Dr. Huld. K recognizes the name immediately. This is the same advocate he had already dismissed. "Absolutely not," K says, turning to his uncle. "I've been here before. He's useless." Karl looks shocked. "You already consulted him." "Yes, and he's done nothing for me except waste my time." Karl frowns, clearly frustrated, but before he can say anything, the door opens, and Dr. Huld himself appears. He is still as frail and sickly as before, moving with the slow caution of someone always on the edge of collapse. He greets Karl warmly, but regards K with an amused smile. "So," Huld says, "you've come back after all." "I haven't," K replies sharply. "My uncle brought me here against my will." Karl sighs. "Just listen to him, Joseph. You're in no position to refuse help." Huld gestures for them to sit, then settles into his chair, studying K, as if he were an interesting specimen under a microscope. "You made a mistake in dismissing me," the advocate says. "But it's understandable. Many defendants believe they can navigate the trial alone. They always come to regret it." K clenches his jaw. "My case hasn't moved forward at all. What exactly have you done for me?" Huld chuckles. "And what exactly do you think progress looks like? Did you expect a verdict, an acquittal? That's not how the court works. The process itself is the punishment." K doesn't want to hear any more of this. "I don't need an advocate," he says firmly. "I'll handle my case my own way." Karl slams his fist against the desk. "Are you insane? This is your life we're talking about." For the first time, Huld turns to Karl and speaks softly. "It's no use trying to convince him. The court does not require his understanding, only his submission. He will learn that in time." K stands up, his frustration boiling over. "I don't accept that. There must be a way to end this. To win." Huld smiles again, the same knowing smile that everyone connected to the court seems to have. "Perhaps, but not the way you think." K storms out, leaving his uncle behind. Karl does not chase after him. K knows that Karl will stay behind, pleading his case with Huld, trying to fix things for him. But it won't matter. Nothing will change. The trial will continue. As K walks back through the city, the streets feel narrower, the buildings taller, pressing in on him. He wonders if his rejection of Huld was a mistake. Was Karl right? Had he turned away his last chance at salvation? The thought lingers in his mind as he returns to his apartment. But rest is impossible. Even in the silence of his room, he hears echoes of the court's whispers, its unseen presence lurking just out of sight. For the first time, a terrifying thought occurs to him. What if the trial was never meant to end? The days blur together as Josef K tries to continue his life as if the trial does not exist. But this is becoming increasingly impossible. The court's presence, once a shadowy force in the background, has begun to seep into every aspect of his existence. His work at the bank feels meaningless, his interactions with colleagues hollow, and his once orderly world is now fractured, dominated by a force he cannot understand or control. One evening, exhausted from his endless thoughts, K decides to visit the cathedral in the city. The visit is not planned. He is merely walking the streets, trying to clear his head, when the heavy doors of the cathedral draw him in. Inside, the cavernous space is dimly lit by flickering candlelight. The stone walls seem to stretch endlessly into darkness, the silence deep and suffocating. As he stands in the empty pews, he is startled by a voice calling his name. Josef K. Turning sharply, he sees a priest emerging from the shadows. The man is dressed in solemn robes, his face calm yet piercing. Something about his presence is deeply unsettling, as if he has been expecting K all along. "You are part of the court," K says, though he does not know why he believes this. The priest nods. "You have been summoned here." K stiffens. He does not remember being summoned, yet it makes perfect sense. Of course, the court would find him even here. It is inescapable. The priest steps closer, his voice low and measured. "Your case is not going well." K lets out a short, bitter laugh. "Is that so? Then tell me, what should I do?" The priest does not answer directly. Instead, he begins telling a story, one that K has never heard before, yet feels strangely familiar. "There was once a man from the country," the priest begins, "who sought the law. He wished to gain access, but when he arrived at the door of the law, he found a gatekeeper standing before it. The gatekeeper was stern and forbidding. The man asked if he could enter, but the gatekeeper said, 'Not now.' K listens transfixed. The man did not leave," the priest continues. "He waited by the door for years, pleading for entry, but the gatekeeper refused. Though he was never forbidden outright, he was always told, 'Not now.' The man grew old, still waiting, still hoping. As he lay dying, he asked the gatekeeper one final question: 'If the law is for everyone, why has no one else come to this door?' And the gatekeeper replied, 'This door was made only for you, and now I am closing it.' The story ends, and a heavy silence fills the cathedral. K stares at the priest, the weight of the parable sinking into him like a stone. "What does it mean?" he asks. "Is the man deceived? Was he foolish to wait?" The priest gives him a long, searching look. "Some believe he was misled," he says. "Others believe he simply did not try hard enough." K clenches his fists. "And you, what do you believe?" "It does not matter what I believe," the priest replies. "The story is over. The man is dead." K feels a sudden rush of anger. "But why tell me this? What am I supposed to learn from it?" The priest's expression does not change. "You must decide that for yourself." K turns away, his mind reeling. The parable haunts him, its meaning shifting with every passing moment. Is he the man from the country? Has he been waiting at the door of the law, believing that one day he would gain access to justice? Or is he already inside, trapped without realizing it? The priest watches him leave without another word. As K steps back onto the city streets, the world outside seems both familiar and alien. The weight of the trial is heavier than ever, yet now it carries a new shape, a shape he cannot yet define. For the first time, he wonders if he is already lost. Josef K leaves the cathedral, but the priest's words stay with him. The story of the man at the door of the law echoes in his mind, an enigma that he cannot escape. Was the man's failure inevitable? Was he foolish to wait, or was the very act of waiting the only choice he ever had? K tries to shake off the thoughts, but something in the story has settled deep within him, like a verdict already passed. The trial continues in its silent, unseen way. No new summons arrive, no new hearings are scheduled, yet K knows he is still trapped within its grasp. His life has taken on a strange duality by day. He carries out his duties at the bank, pretending that his authority there still matters. By night, he is consumed by the weight of his case. The court is like an invisible parasite, draining him of energy, poisoning every interaction, stripping him of his former confidence. One evening, K receives a visit from a man named Block. He is a merchant, a small and unimposing figure, but K is immediately struck by his nervous energy. Block's hands tremble slightly as he speaks, his eyes darting around the room as though expecting someone to interrupt him at any moment. "I hear you are also dealing with the court," Block says in a hushed voice. K hesitates. He has never met this man before, yet there is something familiar about him, something that reminds K of himself. "And you?" K asks. Block nods quickly, then leans in. "For 5 years," he whispers. "5 years I have fought this case. I have spent everything I have on lawyers, on favors, on bribes. I do not sleep. I do not eat. And still, the court remains silent." K studies him carefully. Block's clothes, though once fine, are now worn thin. His face is lined with exhaustion. He is a man who has given his entire existence to his trial, and in return, he has received nothing. K suddenly feels a wave of revulsion. Is this his future? Will he become like Block, a man reduced to a shivering wreck, forever chasing an answer that will never come? "You are wasting your time," K says. "This court, there is no winning, no resolution." Block's face tightens. "That's what they want you to think." K shakes his head. "No, that's what I know." Block's expression darkens. He stands up abruptly, mutters something under his breath, and leaves as quickly as he arrived. K watches him go, the encounter leaving an uneasy feeling in his chest. He should feel superior to Block, should see him as a pathetic figure, an example of what not to become. But instead, he feels something worse: recognition. The thought lingers as he returns to his apartment. That night, he lies awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if the trial has already decided his fate. Josef K is beginning to understand the full weight of his situation. The trial is not something that moves toward resolution. It simply exists, stretching endlessly before him, consuming his time, his energy, and now, it seems, his very identity. There is no moment when he can step outside of it, no way to reclaim his life as it once was. Each conversation, each interaction, each restless night brings him deeper into its grasp. His frustrations with his lawyer, Huld, have only grown. The man speaks in circles, making vague references to influence and secret negotiations, but there is never any actual progress. K no longer believes that Huld is capable of doing anything meaningful for his case. And worse, he suspects the lawyer may not even care. More than once, K has found Huld reclining in bed, rambling about the endless complexities of the court while Lenny sits beside him, doting on him as if he were some feeble, sickly man in need of constant attention. One evening, K makes a decision. He will dismiss Huld. He arrives at the lawyer's home determined to take control. Huld greets him as usual, with his slow, lethargic manner, as if he already knows what K has come to say and does not care. Lenny is there as always, hovering at his side, watching K with an amused expression. "I am relieving you of my case," K says flatly. Huld barely reacts. "A wise decision," he murmurs. K frowns, caught off guard. "You agree?" Huld sighs, adjusting his position on the bed. "It makes no difference. Your case will go on with or without me. You are free to try another lawyer, or to defend yourself, or to ignore the trial altogether. It will not change the outcome." K clenches his jaw. "And what outcome is that?" Huld gives a faint, tired smile. "That is not for me to say." Lenny laughs softly. "You're making a mistake," she tells K. "You think you are taking control, but you are only giving up your best chance." K looks between them, suddenly aware of how absurd this moment is. He is firing a lawyer who never helped him, delivering an ultimatum to a man who never had any power to begin with. It is like speaking to the court itself. No matter what he says, it leads nowhere. "Then it is done," K says simply, turning to leave. Huld does not try to stop him. Lenny only smirks, as if she has seen this all before. As K steps out onto the street, he expects to feel relief, a sense of liberation. Instead, all he feels is the same cold uncertainty that has followed him since the day of his arrest. Perhaps Huld was right. Perhaps it does not matter what he does. And if that is true, then how much time does he have left? The days after dismissing his lawyer pass in a strange, muted haze. Josef K goes to work as usual, speaking to colleagues, reviewing bank records, and attending meetings, but he feels like a ghost moving through familiar spaces. He no longer tries to argue with the court, no longer searches for strategies to defend himself. The trial is everywhere, yet it no longer requires his participation. It is simply waiting. One evening, as summer fades into autumn, K finds himself sitting alone in his apartment, staring at the window's reflection. He barely notices the passing of time until the church bell rings in the distance, echoing through the empty streets. He does not know why, but something in the sound makes his breath catch. A sense of quiet inevitability settles over him. Then, a knock at the door. When K opens it, he is not surprised to see the two men standing outside. They are dressed in black coats, their faces expressionless, their presence unremarkable except for what it means. They do not say why they have come. They do not need to. K nods slightly, as if he had been expecting them all along. Without protest, he steps into the cool night air and follows them. The city is eerily quiet as they walk. The streets are deserted, the lamps casting long, distorted shadows against the stone buildings. It is as if the world has emptied itself, leaving only K and his escorts to complete this final journey. He does not ask where they are going. It is clear that there is only one destination. At last, they arrive at an abandoned quarry on the outskirts of town. The ground is uneven, covered in broken stones and dry earth. K looks around, half expecting to see some last-minute reprieve, some sign that this is all a mistake, that someone will step forward and stop this. But there is no one. The men do not rush. They move methodically, as if performing a simple, bureaucratic task. One of them produces a knife. Its blade catches the dim light. K lets out a short, bitter laugh. He does not plead for mercy. He does not ask what his crime was. There is nothing left to say. They lay him down on the rough ground, his body pressed against the cold earth. He watches as the knife is raised above him. At the last moment, a thought flickers through his mind, something small, almost absurd. "Like a dog," he whispers. Then the knife comes down. Franz Kafka's The Trial remains one of the most unsettling and influential novels of the 20th century. A nightmarish vision of an incomprehensible world where justice is an illusion, and authority is faceless, yet all-consuming. Kafka, who died before completing the novel, likely never intended for it to reach the public. Yet its themes of bureaucracy, alienation, and existential dread have only grown more relevant with time. Through the tragic story of Josef K, Kafka captures the terrifying absurdity of modern life, the feeling of being trapped in a system too vast and indifferent to ever be understood. The Trial is not just a book about one man's downfall. It is a reflection of the silent fears that linger beneath the surface of everyday existence, making it a work that continues to haunt and provoke readers to this day.